excuse me. I'd like to bring the meeting to order, please. Alderman, Reverend High Priestess Davis, could you do the invocation for me, please? I know.
Yes, sir. Let us pray. Most merciful and gracious God, we thank you for the blessings that you bestow upon Southport and all of North Carolina. We ask today that you guide us in ways to show compassion and wisdom in safeguarding, protecting, and enhancing those blessings. We ask also that your guiding hand be with all the rescuers in Western North Carolina and in Florida. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Noah, is there anybody who signed up for public comment? No public comment. Good. All right. The next thing is the approval of the agenda. Are there any motions or thoughts before we move forward?
I'd like to make a motion. Whoops. I'd like to make a motion to remove item F5, EV charging station proposal, from the agenda. I think we need a little more work on that. And so I'm going to meet with the manager and then perhaps bring that back next month. Thank you, Larry.
All right, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Is there any conversation?
I just have a question. What's the nature of the work that needs to be done?
They're not the right chargers, in my opinion, and also not the right location.
And I would add that there's some question about the some of the figures that were put in there. If we're talking about 1 month's worth of data from Oak Island, which is completely different as far as the number of short-term rentals, the people that would use it, and we don't even have a year's worth of data to figure out what that would look like. And it's $42,000 to put this in. So when we're going to do the finance part of it, we need to look at that as well. Any other comments? All those in favor of tabling this until potentially next month, please say aye and raise your hand. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Any other comments before we move forward?
I wanted to talk about the Electricity's applicant, but I can do that as part of the agenda.
Okay. All right. Do I hear a motion to accept the agenda minus item number 5?
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye, please. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. So the first thing up is the follow-up discussion on the RPO projects. Mo, you are up, ma'am.
Good morning, Mayor and Aldermen. I have been asked to come this morning just to give a brief update of the timing and the needs for the division level and where we move forward from here with the RPO projects and the process that we're in currently. So as Sam went through at the last meeting, Sam Boswell from the Cape Fear RPO, that they, in partnership with the NCDOT, identify and prioritize the transportation projects for our division and region. And this state transportation program occurs every 2 years. So currently we are prioritizing for the 2026-2035 STIP, which is underway, and it includes projects that were submitted in 2022 and 2023 by the local governments. So all of the projects that are currently on the list were approved and discussed and approved and are now being prioritized by the divisions and will be sent to the NCDOT in January for the final draft of the STIP. So once these projects are submitted, no new projects at the local level can be considered or added to these lists. So that's where we are. So there was some confusion, I think, that can we go ahead and can we add anything new? Are there any projects now that we wish we had put on this project list? Those can be considered, updated, finalized for the next prioritization list, which will be occurring within the next year to start for the next cycle, which is the 2-year. So in the next year, the city is going to be working on adopting and finalizing the comprehensive plan, and then that background information, including the goals and policies, will be used to prepare our bicycle pedestrian project acceleration plan. And this plan is designed for municipalities that have completed the planning process through the comprehensive plan. So they would identify and prepare priority bicycle and pedestrian projects. So these implementation steps will then provide us information on what are the priorities for the city, what are the basis for future projects that we can submit to DOT, and we will then be in the position to have competitive projects for the next step. So that's kind of where we are. I'm happy to answer any questions.
It's not so much a question, it's just a statement, and Maureen already knows this. So at the staff level, where they're doing all this planning and they're submitting this stuff, this week we have at the legislator side, where the vote is actually taken, we'll be looking at this material and then voting on that. And there was confusion, certainly I am part of that fault, is that when the people from the RPO were talking to me, I misunderstood exactly what Mo tried to clarify right there. I thought we could inject things now into it, and we could not. So that was my bad. However, that doesn't mean we don't push forward fully with the way that Mo has laid this out for the future plans. So for the bicycle pedestrian stuff, which we have looked at to try to make the city easier to get around and on, parts of that should fall in our favor. The Greenway, which is the Board of Aldermen have already voted on, we accepted that as being one of our things 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it was. It's still on the table. When we get to the part of what we're going to submit for this next cycle, I would hope that we would consider that strongly and make sure that if we're going to do any other road issues, if the Greenway is supposed to go up Lord Street, before we dig up Lord Street for anything else, that we take that in consideration so we don't get ahead of ourselves and put something in that we can't now, we're paving over, let's say, pipes and stuff that we don't want to do for the bike path. And so this week, the elected officials will vote, pass it up. But as we know, there's no money. So this is sort of an exercise in futility in the sense that all the money was exhausted prior to our storm and certainly prior to the western side of the state. That may drain the funds for years to come the way North Carolina funds roads and projects. We should all get used to that there may not be any money, virtually anything, unless something falls down. So I just want to make sure everybody understood that part of the process.
I had a question along those lines. Do I remember correctly that whatever is approved in this particular cycle probably would not get funded for years to come?
That's correct.
That notwithstanding whether there's any money, but that's their timetable of action?
Yes, there are different timetables, and those that are on the current STIP that are getting funded that may not be prioritized will be rolled into the next one as well. So there are those kinds of challenges with just the timing between getting the right-of-ways acquired, getting the engineering completed. So those are all different timeframes that take place. So yes, it's several years before a lot of these projects are put on ground.
I thought I remembered 10 years. Is that correct?
It really depends on the project or the scale of the project itself.
Some of them take that long, Alderman Davis, because of the finances that have to be put in. An observation that I have, it may be different from what Rebecca has seen, is that the RPO as well as GSATs and the Wilmington MPO like to go for the big glossy things, 150 million bucks. Well, in the future, at least for the foreseeable future, those big projects are probably not going to happen. So we have to have a fundamental philosophical change to say there's small projects all over the RPO that never get funded because the big projects take all the money away. So if there's any money left over, smaller projects might get a better push because that's all the money we have. So let's do something. Would you agree with that? Okay.
I would agree with that. And to the funding piece and the timeline, I mean, think about how long they've been talking about the 211 widening project, and that is part of it's coming to fruition. But if you remember looking at those projects on that list, the other pieces of 211 are still on that plan to hopefully get prioritized at some point, but they haven't been accepted yet to do that. But it's when they get to it is when they get to it.
Another part of this puzzle is the RPO actually is making up a legislative package. The first round of that we've done already. When we get the revised copy of it, which I should have by Thursday's meeting, we'll get it out to everybody before the Thursday meeting so they can look at it. One of those ideas is that evacuation routes get a higher priority than any other road project. They have the potential of getting more points assigned to them, because right now an evacuation route carries the same weight as anything else. And as you can see in all the press and social media, there's a lot of discussion about evacuation routes. So that's one of the topics. I'll make sure that you all get way before Thursday, as soon as I get it. Everybody gets a copy of that so we can talk about it on Thursday.
The other thing I just want to make sure everybody realizes that last year when we could submit things, we did submit things, and we do have pedestrian projects listed within the RPO.
Yeah, basically what we have here is a big wish list. And somewhere down the road it may or may not stick. But as you said, with all the stuff going on, right now, particularly little projects probably have no chance in this world. They may be 10 or 15 years down the road. So, again, a wish list.
I'm making mine, and I'm not going to wait to ask, because it might take 5 years, but we need to be talking about it for the next 5 years. I'm not going to wait. From my experience of the growth in Southport, we can't wait for anything anymore.
Alderman Spencer, I am totally in your court, which is why we push these projects all the time at every single meeting, just so they can't forget them.
Y'all know I won't be quiet in those meetings.
Any other comments? Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Jarvis, shoreline stabilization update?
How's that? Better? Good morning again. As you're all aware, the Cape Fear River shoreline in Southport has been undergoing increasing erosion, and this is primarily due to the effects of wave action generated by wind, recreational and commercial boat and ship traffic, and the effects of ongoing sea level increase. The city has an ongoing project for the restoration and stabilization of a portion of the shoreline of the Cape Fear River in Southport. The permitting component of the project is moving ahead with permitting documents prepared and an upcoming site meeting scheduled with our Department of Coastal Management representative. We will be obtaining permits for phases 1 through 3 based on the board's previous direction. Now, looking at the graphic, moving from left to right, from west to east, phase 1 is on the left, phase 2 is in the center with the green noted, and phase 3 is on the right side for purposes of discussion. Phase 1 will involve the construction of offshore breakwaters and the installation of sand infill to supplement the current beaches within that phase. Phases 2 and 3 will consist of the installation and supplementation of the rock revetment to the east and west of the city pier. Based on our initial discussions with DCM, it appears that some of the permitting for the phase 3 work and phase 2 work, the area near the city pier, can be expedited. This is due to the fact that it's a supplementation, a maintenance project, and perhaps this would fall under the general permit category within the Department of Coastal Management's purview. So it is possible, and we're still in discussions with DCM, that work could be expedited. That means that it would be able to be undertaken sooner than the phase 1 work, which the permitting and easement acquisition could take into next year. And along that line, we do expect the need for easements from 6 property owners, again at the western end, at the left side of this, for phase 1 of the project. These easements will be necessary to construct and maintain the improvements proposed for that phase 1. That's the breakwaters and the sand infill. Phases 2 and 3 will impact the areas in direct proximity to current revetments and breakwaters, and they will not involve private property impact. I've sent correspondences to the 6 property owners involved in the potential easement acquisition in phase 1. Those correspondence included work descriptions and plans showing the extent of work proposed for each property. There we go. That's shows phase 1 of the work. I've had discussions with several of those property owners, and they are supportive of the project and look forward to seeing the easement language and possibly a meeting that I'd like to set up with all of them in attendance. The city attorney and I have been communicating. He's provided opinions of the easement language, and he's drawing up draft easement documents for property owner review and subsequent execution. Excluding the part of the work that may be able to occur sooner, those portions of phases 2 and 3, we expect permitting and easement acquisition to be complete by July of 2025. Bidding and contract award will follow in the fall of 2025, and construction will commence again in the fall of 2025. Closeout of the project is expected to occur in the spring of 2026, with grant reimbursement to follow. And as you're all aware, we do have a $5 million grant that I believe is extended until July 1st or June 30th of 2026. And we do expect to expend those funds fully, assuming that construction will take all $5 million. It's all going to depend upon the bidding environment at the time the construction project is released for bid. Let's see, just a few more of the slides here. That's phase 1. Phase 2 is the area near the hotel, the park, and Oliver's. Phase 3 is that area east of the city pier. Some cross sections. These are a few of the reviewing agencies that we will have to coordinate with. It is quite a quite a laundry list of acronym agencies at the state and federal government. And here's a couple of sample photos that showed up earlier in our consultants' presentations to you all, showing the sand infill and breakwaters that were installed at a park in Amelia Island, Florida, and a sample of what the rock revetment may look like in the phases 2 and 3 of the project. With that, I'd be happy to answer questions you may have.
Any questions?
I do have a question. With regards to phase 1, the current revetment that we've installed there, both in front of the sewer lift station and then most recently in front of the street for emergency reasons.
Right.
Is that going to be removed?
Right now we expect the emergency repairs to be removed and reused as we implied at the time that they were, at the time that the funding was allocated and the construction would occur. We're still determining what we're going to do with the Army Corps portion of that that was installed near the lift station. That's ultimately going to be up to, you know, the Army Corps to decide what the final resolution is there. But we do expect, we're hoping that what we can do is move that out and infill with sand over that and make one contiguous beach throughout that area.
Any other questions?
Will the revetment in front of the phase 2 section make it more difficult for us to retrieve cars from the water?
No comment.
I have a question.
Yes,
The
sir.
the laundry list of agencies that we have to deal with.
Yes.
Is that linear? We have to go to one before we go to two? and do it-
No, they can all, that can all be done simultaneously.
Okay.
And that will go through our Division of Coastal Management here. Our DCM will coordinate
They
that.
coordinate that?
Yes.
Thank you.
And they will circulate the plans.
I just have a question about the 5 million. Are you thinking that that's going to pay for all 3 phases, or is it just the first?
The consultant's original estimate assumed all 3 phases of construction for a little over 5 million. So we're hoping that, again, the bidding environment, there is a contingency built in there, a construction contingency of several $100,000. So we're hoping that by the time this is bid, and that's why we have to look carefully at phases, that the earlier phases that may go out 2 and 3, we have to make sure that we do retain enough money in abeyance for the construction of phase 1. But we do think, fingers crossed, that we have enough for all of it.
Go ahead.
They're questions that I just have to get out in the air so that I'm not haunted with them. As we build up the section where the property owners own their property and we improve that, and again, I am for cooperation, and I don't mind people benefiting from cooperating with the city.
Right.
So I'm not trying to throw a negative shadow on this, but as we build up that section, will that open up the potential for building anything on those properties?
No. The easements are going to be very specific as to what types of improvements, if any, can be built on that. The first intent of the project and the subsequent easements will be to limit any kind of impact to the proposed improvements that may affect its structural integrity. And certainly dwellings and things like that, or any kind of improvements of that type, would affect that structural integrity. And also, it's my understanding that the property owner's land would be owned up to the high water mark, and waterward of the high water mark are waters of the state. So there's not really enough, not enough area now. We won't be changing the high water mark. So if they did not enjoy the privilege of building there before, they will not afterwards. You're welcome.
Any other comments? Thank you, sir. Appreciate
You're
it.
very welcome.
The next is Tom Z. You're up with stormwater discussion, sir.
here to talk about stormwater once again. I think last year was the year of sanitary sewer. This year is going to be the year of stormwater. I know there's been a lot of talk with what we had during the last storm, the Cyclone 8. The first thing I want to clear up is the stormwater system did not fail. There was no failure of the stormwater system. There seems to be this misconception that that's why we had all the flooding. Nothing, that is not the truth. The truth is it was inundated with water beyond the capacity of the design capacity of the system. Cyclone 8 delivered 20 inches of rain in 12 hours. 20 inches, 12 hours. Florence, 27 inches, 4 days. Big difference. The system never had time to recover during this Cyclone 8. It just kept coming down, and it overflowed everything. Debbie, which was just about a month earlier, was 10 inches over 3 days. And I think if you noticed within the city, there was minimal flooding all over. So, like, we can't say that our stormwater system failed. It did not fail. It was inundated. The system at best is designed to handle a 25-year storm. The event we had was in excess of a 1,000-year storm. No matter what was out there, we would have had flooding all over town. That's what it was. Now, negative aside, what are we doing going forward? Last year, as you all know, we received a grant from Golden Leaf to map, model the system and prepare a CIP plan for improvements. The current mapping that we have is from 1983 and has not been updated since. So, little out of date, just a little. Last week, I received the draft copy of the report, and I'm in the process of reviewing it. In the preliminary review of the draft, it should be noted there are pipes in the city that have a level of service for a 2-year storm and less. 2-year storm and less. That means your regular occurring storm can back up a lot of pipes in our system. And these pipes are in areas that are causing not blockages, but they're constricting the flow and causing flooding in areas. So, like I said, in the process of reviewing all that document, it's anticipated we're going to have the consultant come in November to present on all his findings, following the mapping and what he's putting in the CIP plan. The preliminary mapping part of this was completed earlier this year. And as part of that project, it enabled Tom Stanley and Public Works to make some improvements to the system. Some of the areas are Willis Drive and several areas on North Atlantic. These improvements that they did resulted in minimum flooding during Debbie earlier this year. There were areas that consistently flooded in something like Debbie, but they did not flood during Debbie. So we're already seeing the fruits of the grant, and this is just from the preliminary stuff. The preliminary maps are also currently being used by DPW to do preventive cleaning. This was done in advance of Debbie. For about a week before, Public Works went out every day and hit some of the areas that were prone, the downstream sides. Once again, during Debbie, I think everyone will agree there was not that inundation of flooding that you would normally have during a storm like that. So things are working. We are working and moving forward. I'm currently working with Tom Stanley to develop a maintenance program for the stormwater system where they will go out weekly, monthly, quarterly, and hit certain areas that are prone or certain areas that need to be cleaned more regularly and things like that. This Public Works is able to do because we no longer have the water and sewer system. Same crew that was doing all the water and sewer work and spent 95% of their time doing that now can go out and do these other projects. They're able to do these little stormwater improvement projects. They're able to go out and do the stormwater cleaning. Other things is they could start making road repairs. They can start doing sidewalk improvements in town. So there is another benefit to having given the water and sewer system to the county, is that now our Public Works Department here can get these things done and really get ahead of the game on things. Once we have the CIP plan for the stormwater projects, we will then begin looking into funding sources, grants and stuff to aid us in implementing that plan. Having the CIP plan from the consultant with the backup data and the modeling gives us extra points when we apply for grants. So whereas before we were just saying, oh yeah, it floods here, let's do this, we now have empirical data that shows why it floods and what pipes need to be repaired. So it moves us higher up on the list to do it. And lastly, DPW will continue making these minor improvements to the system to reduce the flooding in the city. So that's just a rough overview of where we're at. Just a couple other things to note. In our UDO, systems are to be designed for a 2, 10, and 25-year storm. Once again, I'll go back to Cyclone 8 was a 1,000-year storm. We're only asking to design for a 2, 10, and 25. You can ask for more stringent, and we could also design for, a higher, but it becomes cost prohibitive. It really, and the size of pipes you would have to put in, we couldn't do it. Stormwater ponds are designed for a 10-year storm and a check for no damage from a 50-year storm. Just little bits of information. Emergency spillways on detention basins, per our UDO and our stormwater manual. Emergency spillway on detention ponds are designed for a 50-year storm. So, with that, if there's any questions or comments or...
Any comments from the board?
I just wanted to say that I think that the ability for our public works to be able to take care of some of these stormwater maintenance, things that have kind of been left previously, I think it made a huge impact, certainly during Debbie. I think that that's fantastic. And then for us to be able to identify that we are moving forward, we're making the adjustments, and I think no one in town would have any fault with us moving forward with these plans at this point.
Are you, when we hear the results of the study and so on, are you going to give us recommendations for possible changes in the UDO?
That is totally separate from this mapping and modeling plan. That's something that we should be doing, regardless of whether we're doing the mapping and modeling. That is something that's being worked on. We have a, rough draft of it. I've been working with Mo on that for a couple months now. And, when the time is right, we will go forward with that process.
I have a question about stormwater ponds. I believe that DEQ is the one that they have to get approval, a developer would get approval for a stormwater pond. Are we allowed to have stricter parameters than the state for those stormwater ponds that then they would enforce?
Yes, and it's right in our current ordinance that if our standard is more stringent than the state standard, they have to comply with ours. So just because they can get a state permit under the state guidelines, if we have something that is stricter, they have to comply with that. So the answer is yes, we can be more stringent than the state requirements.
Would that be at least something that we could do to a higher standard that wouldn't be what your cost prohibitive?
Yes. Yes.
So those updates, we could go ahead and...
Yeah, one of the things in our current ordinance is that there's no increase in the peak flow leaving the site. One of the things I think we should be doing is not saying no increase. I think we should be asking for reductions in the peak flow leaving the site. That's my personal opinion. That relieves a lot of the, congestion downstream of all the stuff.
Can you bring us back some language to consider? I guess it needs to go to the planning board first because that's a UDO conversation, but so we can move forward with some of that conversation.
Yes, like I said, there is a draft written, and, we're just making some tweaks to it here and there. Like I said, I've been working with Mo on that. The plan is to first go to the planning board, to present it to them, get their sign off, then it comes back to this board.
On the retention or stormwater ponds, is it that they need to be deeper or do they need to be bigger?
It's a combination and neither. They can be partially infiltration basins. So they're not just holding and releasing, that they're actually infiltrating into the ground. They could be deeper, they could be bigger. It's a combination of things. We put something out there and the developer has to comply with it. And there's numerous ways you can do that. Some of it would be with like vegetative swales around the site, things like that. So it's not necessarily that you have to make a bigger hole in the ground to hold water.
Tom, is there anything that says we can't have more, or what would control the adding of additional ponds? Is that something that could be done, or is that just the developer that has to do that?
On something that is existing, we can't go back and change it. This would be for anything going forward. Or if they're making changes to their impervious coverage within the development, then we could have them comply with the current standard.
Do you have any gauge or estimate or actual data on how many of the retention ponds in the city limits were a problem this time?
No.
Seemed like everywhere I looked. But
I'm going to say it was probably every one. Just because, like I said, if you're designing something to have an overflow with a 50-year storm and you have a 1,000-year storm, you're going to have an overflow.
Let me have this. Since we're on the ponds,
Yes.
if a city takes over a subdivision and they have a stormwater system,
Yes.
can we tie into that system from the exterior, like Stewart, Park, things of that nature?
When the city takes over the stormwater systems on these developments, we're taking over the piping system, and the HOA is continuing the maintenance on the detention pond. So it's something we'd have to get an attorney's opinion on, because the ultimate end point of that is not the city's maintenance responsibility. So I'm not sure how that would work.
Let me keep going before I lose the mic. Bonnets Creek,
Yes.
backed up.
Yes. My backyard, 5 feet of
Your
water.
backyard, the swamp garden that we're going to clean up one day.
Oh, they're nice and clean now.
That's nice. I know. The Lord helps us in mysterious ways. So, amen. Anyways, she's not Baptist. So this is the deal. I don't want to argue with you. I love you, Tom. You have sung my song every time we've got together. I like what you've got to say, but I disagree. Our system failed. I watched it fail. I watched the pipe on Bonnets Creek fill up. And I walked over to the other side, and only 25% was coming out. Can I say why that happened? Can I say that in public? Should I say that in public? What happened there? That thing overflowed, and there's a sewer pipe running through the middle of it. So our pipe that was letting water come out of Bonnets Creek is half blocked by a sewer line. We need a bridge there. It backed up. It backed up my drain in my backyard. I'm not being belligerent because my house flooded for the second time, but I am getting a college education on it because I've watched it twice. And the pipes cannot do anything when Bonnets Creek is full. And when Bonnets Creek is full, Stewart Avenue can't flow. If Stewart Avenue flowed better and Bonnets Creek was clogged, I would get worse. We're all in the same boat.
I think we just need to define what a failure is. To me, a failure of a system is when it blows out. This system did not blow out. The system has design defects in it. And that is one of the things that has been identified in the modeling, and specifically Bonnets Creek, both the northern portion and the southern portion are two of the items within the capital improvement plan.
Would you call Price's Creek a blowout?
Yes. Yes.
It failed.
Oh, 100%. That was a failure.
So this is the problem, and this is my heritage that I'm talking about, and I'm not trying to beat them down because they did not know what was coming. But it was ill prepared. It was ill built. You don't put dirt over an estuary, put a pipe over it, and say this is a road.
You don't put an undersized pipe.
Yeah, and so Price's Creek should have never been blocked. I think we should get a bridge there. I think we should get a bridge at Bonnets Creek.
Yep.
And when you see that, the water flow is going to be much better. But the people that are going to have, paying those bills is big money, and everybody wants to turn their heads.
And now we have empirical data to show those issues. And you're correct.
So as we're looking at our surrounding areas that are no longer our ETJ, and the potential for those developments to be annexed into City of Southport, as we look at our stormwater versus what the county requires, are we going to have any ability to influence what those developers that are in our former ETJ that might want to annex in will be doing?
If they're going to be annexing in, we will be reviewing those plans. So yes, if they're not going to be annexing in, we really have no control or no say. We can go to the planning board, the county planning board, and say, hey, we don't feel this will work. How they respond, that's a whole nother story.
Is that as it relates, so some of these subdivisions that are currently in the county, they're going to do phase annexation. So everything's going to be handled at the county level. And then so stormwater and everything would be handled at that level.
If that is the way it's going to be done, we are going to have to seriously look at those developments before annexing them in, and there would need to be a board policy on, unless you're complying with our ordinance for stormwater, we are not going to accept you in.
And I feel like there are some developments that may, as they're developed, the developer has no plans to annex in, and then at some point, for whatever reason, they decide later during that process to do so. I guess we would need to figure out some sort of mechanism for that as well.
Exactly.
So, the ETJ property in your mapping,
We did not map the ETJ.
but their water, regardless of who owns it, is all coming to our creeks.
Yes.
And so if there's higher density, have you started the process of trying to figure out, they being the county, have put density levels on all that piece of property already? Assuming they build out at that density level, how do we go about trying to figure out how much water that's going to be? Because if Mark gets his way, and I hope he does, to get a bigger pipe, it's based on what we're doing and not based on what they're doing. And so do we need even a bigger pipe to figure this out, or are we going to fail 10 years down the line and go back and do it again?
Everything that happened with the ETJ happened too far into this this mapping and modeling project to do that. What we would do is, when we get grant funds or the board approved funds to do a project, we would then have that remodeled based on the density of the county to see if the preliminary, what they said should go in, is sufficient, or should it be enlarged.
Well, since there's developers that are lined up already, trying to buy property and build there, look, for me, I'm just speaking for me, I'm gonna need your help as to figure out how do we do this like tomorrow and not 3 years from now when we finally get funds to do something like that?
We're ahead of the game right now because of what we've done in the past year to get to this point with the mapping and modeling project. So at this point, it becomes easier to throw numbers into a creek based on density projections for ETJ things. But we don't want to stop this project because we have a deadline on grant funds, so we want to get this to fruition so we actually have something to work forward with. And then we just update this as we need. So next year, you know, as part of next year, we may want to have this updated based on those density requirements.
I'm not sure that we can wait a year, because our budget won't start until July 1st. And then we got to go through all the process of yada, 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 to get RFPs and this and that and the other thing. Our timeline is not based on the old days of being able to sit around and wait for the seasons to come and go. Our timeline for that ETJ property, if it wasn't dumping the water into us, that'd just be an inconvenience. But it is dumping the water into us. We need to figure out quicker how we're going to do this, and then look for the money quicker.
What are our options? I mean, do we have any solutions available to us? We can't tell the county what to do.
I'm not telling the county what to do at all. Whatever they're going to do is what they're going to do. I'm not trying to change that train has left the station a long time ago.
And we can't tell developers.
No, what we can do is try to
developing
figure out
ETJ.
how much water, based on current zoning, we would expect that they build out, and then look at that as far as how much it's going to cost us to put the downstream piping, canals, whatever we're going to do, together to be able to get the water to there. And I don't know that we can, so as we go forward with legislative packages to Raleigh, who were helpful in making the higher density, then maybe we need to ask for some reprieve so we don't flood every time because of the higher density. If you want to go do that, which you did, then here's the downside of what happens to that. And I don't think that we can wait a full year to have that conversation. It may be that we can't put every piece of minutia together, but the legislative session starts in January. And can we at least come up with a position paper to say what it is that we're doing? Because we're not going to win this battle the first round out of the gate. So we need to start beating that drum that when you county, when you start approving this stuff left and right, because that is the current commissioners have all said, build, 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 then what does that mean for us? On water, take all the other politics, and I'm not trying to relitigate the ETJ. That's over. But how do we figure out what that water issue is going to be?
Well, I can get a quote from the consultant to do that analysis, so we have that number. One thing to consider here is, and this could work in our favor with the state for getting money, is all these creeks run under state roads. Or over during the storm. So if we can show that these pipes are undersized based on that future development, there you have more bullets to go at the state with to get funding.
You know, unfortunately, Tom's not here, but the state came in, I'm going to use 9th Street as an example.
Exactly.
We all know that the culvert under 9th Street is ridiculous. However, the hydrologist came in, and I would be willing to put money on this table that they were looking at the current build-out.
100% they're looking at the current build-out.
And they're not looking at what tomorrow's build-out is going to be. And so how do we, before we even get that culvert built, how do we go and ask them to do the hydrology for the next thing? Or are they legally allowed to do that?
I don't know about the legality of it, but we could go forward and have the consultant do the hydrology for it based on the future that is allowable, and then provide that to the state. But there is a cost to us for that, so we need to allocate funds to do that.
Well, I'm going to go back to the managers to ask him to look at these issues, come up with how much this is going to cost us, the timeline, I want a real timeline, timeline of how to do this, so that we can move forward with, if we have to ask for money because it's going to be over the top of what we can afford, then we need to do this ASAP. So we get it in on the legislative package to say, this is where we are.
Yes. Is it fair to say that everything, that the canal, that's really what we're talking about, is everything from the canal this way is the number that we're trying to determine?
Probably, yes.
Okay.
Roughly,
I mean, I know that we've got some areas of town on the other side of the canal,
Exactly.
but those areas are being fixed. 211, and
Well,
it's got a bridge.
where does river mist water go to when they overflow their ponds?
That creek at the bottom there, right?
It's Bonnet's Creek?
That's
No,
That's
it's not
Dutchman
Bonnet's
Creek.
Creek.
That's Dutchman Creek where
Dutchman
the bridge
Creek.
failed.
Right.
Yeah, and the state's already fixing that bridge. So
Okay.
technically, everything south of the
Right.
canal is what we're trying to.
What we're talking about would be 9th Street, Leonard Street, Moore Street. Those would be the critical ones that we're talking.
I just want to make sure that whatever that is that's being built on the backside of River Mist, all the way up to Long Beach Road, all that concrete that's going to go in there, that water's not coming to this water, correct? That's going someplace else?
I don't believe it's coming to here.
Can
I
we-
don't believe,
Can we
but I
at
don't
least
know.
try to figure
Yeah, we
that
could look
out?
at a GIS map of that.
I don't know what the
figure it out.
topography goes, but
Yeah.
it looks like it's uphill from me, but that's just me.
I think Dutchman Creek jumps out near the wildlife ramp.
Right, I think so too,
So that's Fish Factory Road down there.
right.
Okay, let's stop talking about culverts. The new word is bridge, B-R-I-D-G-E. Is that right? I hope Renee did that right. Seriously, if you don't, so I've got my brother, the police chief here, and he can testify today. I'm preaching today, I think. But it's clear that Southport is in high demand, and it's not just Southport citizens that are coming to Southport. People, Bald Head, the ferry, we're a major commerce center. We might be a small landmass, but this is affecting a lot of people, and we see that in the backups trying to leave town every day. They're not leaving town to spend the night away from here. So people are coming and going. This is more of a southeastern North Carolina issue than a Southport issue. My question is, does the county ever help people in the city? Do they ever give some of that money back to the city? Do they ever help us with anything?
That's not a question that I have an answer to.
I'm gonna have to ask my wealthy commissioner friends, will y'all help us?
You're being delusional.
I'm gonna ask Mr. Forte, Mr. Williams, I won't ask Ms. Sykes.
I have a question which is a little more micro. For citizens whose homes flooded and infill housing that lots are being regraded, what are the rules around that with water going to your neighbor and all of that?
The rules in the city UDO, there are none currently.
So there's no regulation about
No
that?
regulation for that.
That's part of the update?
That will be part of the update, yes. Going forward, to get off one part of it onto the other part, the big issue for the city going forward is going to be infill. it's not going to be large-scale development based on, you know, the ETJ going away and all that. It's going to be infill housing that's going to create more flooding problems for the city going forward.
On a part that one might argue about whether it was a failure or not the city's failure, but let's go to Caswell Street. Have we decided what we're going to do on that yet? Because the guy filled it in? Have you
No.
written a position paper that tells us what happened there so that the manager can bring it to us to decide whether or not we want to take
That
legal action?
actually is going through the attorney.
It's going through the attorney now?
Through the attorney,
Okay,
yes.
so we have done something. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, especially speaking of infill lots, as you drive up North Lord and North Caswell, and you look at the new builds along there, the houses are sitting in a lake. And I remember, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago when construction on those got underway, a resident of Cades Cove came and spoke to us during public comment, and he said, these people are going to have terrible flooding. They're not in a flood zone, and yet they're going to be flooded in heavy rain because they're sitting on a slab, and the slab is below street grade. I mean, they're in a basin, effectively. And yet we've had no building code restrictions on doing that. I've asked Stuart to pass to our city attorney, can we outlaw building on slab anywhere in the city? I don't know.
That's not a question I can
I mean,
answer.
basically, can our building code be changed or revised to require that all houses in all future homes or buildings have a foundation that is 2 or 3 feet above grade? I don't know, but that's not going to help anybody who got flooded this time, but maybe in the future.
Based on what we've seen with all the houses on slab and what problems they had, it would seem to me that common sense would tell you to do that, but common sense hadn't any sway recently.
There's a reason why people build on slabs. It's what they can afford. And when you go and you look at the house, you can tell it's on a slab or it's on a crawl space. We're not here to protect everybody from themselves.
It is, so can you, and this is a building question, you know, a beach house built on piers. I'm seeing some of these houses being built on piers more than foundations at all. And that seems to be the safest thing. Can we build a house in Southport, second floor with a drive underneath? You can't do that, can you?
As long as it's under 40 feet, you can.
There's one on Moore Street, or on Bay Street.
Yeah, typically what you're talking about
2 doors away from
are
me.
VE zones and AE zones and coastal A. That's what you're talking about, where people typically build up on pilings. And our waterfront has a lot of that zoning, that FEMA flood zoning.
I think there's a few examples of that on Clarendon near 9th. I believe it's Clarendon. It's worth going to take a look at. And essentially what those people decided was makes more sense to go up on a 33-foot wide lot.
I absolutely agree. I would not put a foundation anywhere. Again, my downstairs is a concrete basement type of thing. It is easy to flood. So putting these houses up a little higher, allowing them to go up a little bit higher, I'm not talking about the top end, but would be important. And it's hard to tell people, it's hard to let 90% build on their property, and then the last 10% that haven't done anything start to say, no, you can't build. It's really hard to justify that.
So you're stealing my thunder, and my managers, we're going to do an after-storm assessment to cover what lessons learned in the stormwater situation as far as building and planning requirements, such as the slab. We already reached out to the attorney for an opinion on that, as well as ditches on private property, road improvements, as one concerted after-action storm assessment, and then we will come up with some recommendations and costs that we can put into the legislative packet. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I just have one more, and it is related to stormwater only because of the culverts on Moore Street and what we've seen with that road blowout. Part of the conversation so let me just start with, the regional director of the Department of Transportation has been hearing from me literally every day, and every time I get in traffic on the way in or out of Southport, he gets a text message from me letting him know that I am now in traffic. He gets a text message from me about 15 minutes later to let him know where I am in the traffic. And then when I finally clear the traffic, he gets another text message from me, both into and out of Southport since the day that we have had this issue come to be. Part of those conversations that I've now had with him are about Moore Street. And while Moore Street is extremely important to us in the city of Southport, we're prioritizing, and DOT has prioritized, the bridges on 211 because they are obviously needed for daily transportation and moving goods in and out of the area, as well as people and our ability to have emergency response more quickly. And certainly our first responders have done a fantastic job dealing with getting into and out of the areas that are no longer contiguous to us at this point in time. Part of that conversation about Moore Street in particular was the fact that the culverts are obviously not enough for what we've seen there, and that conversation has already begun about a bridge on Moore Street. So that is, those conversations are happening with the DOT at this time, and that does not go into the RPO package and that conversation because it is currently out. It doesn't have to go through that RPO planning process that we're having to deal with some of the other hopes and dreams that we have going forward. So I just want to let everybody know that those conversations are happening, and hopefully that will help drain all of our stormwater much more quickly when we're not trying to go through culverts there.
I told Roy.
Any other comments? Thank you, kind sir. All right, the next is a update on FEMA from the city manager and Brian.
So Brian Kohoff has done an excellent job coordinating the actual nuts and bolts of the FEMA reimbursement requests. So I want to allow him to have the credit for that and give the report. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. What I've been asked to do is try to put together just a brief presentation of where we stand with both the public assistance and the individual assistance with FEMA. As you guys might know, there's two types of FEMA assistance. There's the public side that deals with our infrastructure, the governmental side of it, and then there's the individual assistance. Within the state, for both FEMA and the state, these are broken down into two totally different divisions. They don't mix. So we're working with two separate people from FEMA and two separate people from the state. So for the public assistance, that's for our side of the house. No federal declaration as of today. A state declaration is in place at this time. I met with the state and FEMA this Saturday, and FEMA did their first, for the public side, their first inspections. We went ahead, it was myself, two FEMA employees, also their mitigation team for FEMA, and the state supervisor on their side, and David McIntyre. When they came in, the first thing that they looked at was obviously the bridges to see where they were at on that. They had the One of the mitigation gentlemen for FEMA is actually on the conservation side. He actually had a lot to say about the blowout on Moore Street that I'll be able to talk to a little bit if you need. So we went through, reviewed the damages. We went to the Parks and Rec, where they had some damage. We went to the fire station, where we had some damage. And we spent some time in the EOC going over the payroll stuff and things of that nature. We submitted a total, we submitted previously to the state about $2.8 million. What we originally submitted was a total rework of our water, our stormwater system. That was at the request of the state to go ahead and figure that out, all right? When we met with FEMA, FEMA said, well, okay, I see what you guys are wanting to do here, and I somewhat agree with it, but it's going to get denied. What they asked us to do was go ahead and submit for the ability to do a full inspection of our entire system. And whatever problems we found during that official inspection, that we could create projects for it going forward. So that's why there's such a big difference in what we submitted originally versus what we ended up submitting on Saturday. There's nothing further needed from us. We don't have to submit any more paperwork. There's no timelines. There's no nothing. Right now, it's just they're putting together all the numbers because they also did an inspection at Oak Island. They did Boiling Springs. They did Bolivia. They were in 3 different teams. The details that we submitted for the damages for the assistance for the fire department, we had a building leak. $4,800. We had to required maintenance for 14 vehicles that were in water above their axles. So we have to replace bearings and replace seals and those things. The big change that we had is we had an issue with our 361, our tower. We originally only submitted $22,000 for repair of that tower. When FEMA saw it, and based off some new information, they totaled it out. They said for us to submit for a full replacement cost of the tower. I'm not too sure that's how that'll play out, but that's how they wanted us to submit it. So replacement cost, we put in $1.5 million for the tower. Now they only count what the insurance won't pay. So for our insurance on that tower, we have $1 million insurance with a $2,000 deductible. So they counted $500,000 plus $2,000 going towards the bottom line. Parks and Rec, they have those several doors going around the building. They had flooding. They were actually surprised there was not as much damage as they thought when they look at the outside, and they still see the water line, especially the back. Most of the damage was into the kitchen. The kitchen's older. It has wooden cabinets, the drywall and so on and so forth. So we submitted for $37,000 for that and to replace some tile and stuff. They went out there, inspected that. We also had 3 desktop computers with monitors that unfortunately were on the floor at that time, and they got ruined also. So we submitted $9,600. So the public utilities, so the stormwater. So like I was saying, they had us get rid of just doing a full replacement, and Tom Z was nice enough to put all that together. What they wanted us to do is take all the linear foot of it and then figure out what it would cost for us to do inspection and cleaning, and then anything found during that, we would create other projects. So I worked with Tom Stanley on making sure that we had what the prices was per linear foot for that, and that came to $84,532. the general. So extra labor for the storm and storm damage protection. Incurs all the extra labor that went on during the storm, a little bit after the storm, and then the police department. They're really getting the brunt of all that extra cost, not only just for our policemen, but policemen that were calling in, taking care of them for lodging and so on and so forth. Lance was able to get me a full report for that, and that was submitted to them too, and they agreed to that. Actually, they agreed to that number. I asked Lance to go ahead and put it all the way to the end of November, even though we're supposed to have the bridges done by the end of October. FEMA went ahead and said, you know, we're good with till the end of November because we know construction and so on and so forth. So that's what brings us to our million and plus.
Can I interrupt? The podium's in the way. I can't see what that labor total is.
Well, it's $327,099. The day of the storm, so we've incurred a total of, as of 9/30, we've incurred a total extra cost of $76,462. The rest is all what's going to be happening with the traffic control and so on. So now we move to the individual assistance. Yvonne Adams with the state, so they informed me that last Thursday they went ahead jointly with FEMA and they went ahead and submitted for the federal declaration. The county, they'll be the ones that heads up the disaster response stations. I spoke with Mr. McIntyre on Saturday. He's just waiting for that official word back. And then their goal is to go ahead and try to set up different stations throughout each city. They want to try to utilize like senior centers and things of that nature for those stations. County's waiting on the official declaration. Once they receive it, they'll get with the city managers for each place and determine the best place. There is some concern about, on our side, whether we want to have it in the city or maybe on the other side of the city, because you might still get Boiling Springs people to come, not only, you know, with our traffic issues. So the station hours, this is mandated by the state. The station hours will be 8 to 6 Monday through Friday and 10 to 1 on Saturday. And this is also where the business owners would submit for their economic relief plans and so on and so forth. This is just a basic overview of the types of loans for the businesses and the home loans that they'll be eligible for. So let's say for instance, FEMA comes back and says, no, we're not going to, it doesn't meet the criteria for public assistance, which it does, but if for some reason it doesn't. The state, we're still good through the state. So the state has declared. So the state is the one that's really pushing for FEMA to do it because we can use their funds then instead of the state funds. From the business side, it's the exact same thing, what's offered, whether it's federal or whether it's state. On the home disaster, for our residents, that's where there's a big change, all right? If for some reason the state is the only one that provides the assistance and FEMA says, you know what, no, we're not doing it, they max out at $42,500 of assistance, all right? That's to give the money. They can still apply for grants and loans through SBA. That gives them more money, but if they don't meet the requirements for those loans, the most that they can get that they don't have to pay back is that $42,500. That's all I got. Anybody's got any questions?
Do you expect that the demands on FEMA and the state for relief in western North Carolina will diminish significantly the opportunities for any relief here?
I don't, because they made sure to make it a point to us every time we talked about, because I'll be honest, I sort of said a few times I feel bad taking your guys' time walking you through some of this stuff compared to what's going on. And they made a point a few times to say, no, your guys' needs just as important. The scale might not be as large, but it's just as important. I do think that the declaration on the public assistance side, according to what was explained to me by Janine, it might be sitting a little bit longer than it would normally because of everything that's going on with the western side. Not that they would deny it, but I just think it's going through that red tape process. It takes a little bit longer right now. As soon as they have that back, the goal is to have those stations put in place within 48 hours. So.
Ryan, could you help me understand something? So we needed 25 homes for the public, the individual assistance. We needed 5 businesses for the
And that's countywide.
countywide. Then there was another figure that was thrown out, and I'm not sure how those two mix, that you had to have a total damage of $20 million
That's on the public side.
on the public side.
Yeah.
And the last time that I had heard anything from NCDOT was that they had only submitted an estimate of $4 to $5 million.
That's been changed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
that's been
have we hit
changed.
the 20 million?
Huh?
Have we hit the 20 million?
So prior to our meeting, they were just a little bit above 19.5 is what they explained to me. Prior to what we've...
Prior to Saturday.
That is correct.
So we have not quite met that target number yet.
Well, that's where they had to re-add us. So that and going to what Ms. Kelly was talking about. So the FEMA mitigation expert that was out there was one on the conservative side, the making sure that the red-headed woodpecker, all that stuff. And when he saw Moore Street, he immediately said that there's no way that they would approve a project for it to go back as a culvert. That would have to be a bridge. He talked about the way that the ecosystem.
So you feel
or
comfortable we're
something
going to hit
has
the
to
20 million?
Huh?
You feel comfortable we're going to hit the 20 million?
I do. They seem to
Okay.
too. And like I said, the state is finding every single piece of dollar they can because they don't want it to come from their budget. They want it to come from the FEMA side.
And so whether we do hit the 20 million or not, that does not impact the individual assistance, both for
does not
homeowners
impact
and businesses. Those are
We-
two separate things.
We've already met that, the 25 and 5.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else?
And we also hit the 1% of operating expenses figure
Yeah.
as well to trigger PDA once the federal declaration is implemented.
Correct.
Yes, thank you. That was another standard.
I have a question. I don't think it's for you, but it might be the city manager about debris pickup and that sort of thing. I know we had over 80 homes that took on water, either crawl space or inside their homes. And I know some have flood insurance that may pay for debris removal, but could you just, for the citizens, let us know how that, because I know it didn't meet the threshold that we've done before where we've implemented emergency standards.
Mr. Stanley and I conducted a citywide street assessment visually, and out of the 82 homes, which is actually 83 that were submitted as part of the damage assessment, we assessed only 5 to 6 had roadside debris. We are in contact with those owners now that if they have flood insurance, that they have told us that covers them to remove it themselves. That's the quickest way. I was waiting for the FEMA reimbursement before we authorized our crews to go out for the remainder. So they're free to use their insurance, and if that's the fastest way, we will get it up if their insurance is slow or tardy or fails to get it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. So the next one is the North Carolina Eastern Municipal Power Agency Board of Commissioners, which is it Larry and Noah going to talk, or just Larry? Are you presenting, sir? Thank you.
Good morning. So, as the mayor stated, North Carolina Eastern Municipal Power Agency, currently we have no commissioner with the retirement of Paul Fisher, and Ellie Pittenger was the second alternate. Currently, Mr. Alt is the first alternate. So, Frank Petraglia, one of our residents in the city, has stepped up and offered to take that position. Frank is a well-qualified individual. He was general manager at Mitsubishi for 19 years, distribution and substations. In addition to that, he was VP for Siemens for the U.S. and South American operations, and then RCM for the same thing. So generation, distribution, substations, installation, and everything else. And because of his positions in these companies, I think he has the business acumen to be able to address the best interests of the city as a resident also, because we're all looking out for the best interests of the city. So we are public power, so we dictate what we get for rates, and also on the other side, we need to be represented adequately when we're talking through these agencies to Electricities, who is our intermediary to sell wholesale power to us. So as myself, I think I'm fairly qualified to take up the second alternate in the event no one else shows up. I've been in generation and distribution for, well, since 1985, not to date it, but so that's been mostly in engineering and programs and that sort. So we were looking to fill that position, and if you would like to ask any questions of Frank, he's in the audience here, so I can bring him up.
Alderman Mosteller?
Yeah, I appreciate, I want to say I'm grateful for Mr. Pataglia putting in an application. Our process, though, is we advertise for the committee position or whatever, and then we do an interview process. I understand the interview only because it would be fair for him, for the applicant to be in an interview process so he could ask questions of what's expected and all the different things. And I know that the mayor has been doing, serving as Electric City's alternate before this year. So I would ask that we just table the appointment this meeting, allow it to have an interview process, and the mayor can appoint whoever, I guess, to the interview panel. But so that gives that, so we complete our process of it. And then in the interim, have you continue to be the alternate?
Well, right now, Rich is the voting alternate. We have no second.
I think we could probably do this between now and Thursday, if that's okay with you, sir. Because there's a lot of politics that are involved in this, and I just want you to make sure that you understand what they are, not necessarily with us, but with the world, and so that you have if you decide to take the position, you know what you're facing. It's not a daunting position, it's just something that should be out there.
Mr. Mayor.
So if we could,
Mayor?
Go ahead.
Did I not just understand that we're supposed to have advertised this position?
It was.
My bad.
Mr. Mayor, does this applicant have to be a city resident?
I don't know the answer to that.
Typically, they
Are you a
have
city
been.
resident, sir?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we had other applications in June, and we've been waiting and waiting and waiting. We've been talking about this since June. Carl Moser, I know, applied, and he ran the plant at Duke Energy out here at Brunswick County. So where did that application go?
This is the only application I know of.
Okay.
This is the only individual that stepped forward.
Well, in that case, we're going to have to do a review of what happened. Nothing on you, sir, at all. But we got to be fair to everything. So
I know that Mr. Moser put it in because there was a deadline, and he raced to get it in like the last day.
all right, I'm going to ask the city manager to do that review and report back to us by Thursday about what happened. Did people withdraw? What occurred with the applications, so that we can move this quicker than slower.
Can we also continue with the interview between now and Thursday?
I don't see why not, because we would have to interview other people as well.
It may be, but maybe not. If in fact we learn that wasn't the case, then we can go ahead and make the appointment Thursday.
Well, what Mark is talking about, I remember Mark telling me that way back in June. So it's not like, there seems to have been a paper kerfuffle.
It could have been rescinded,
It could have been.
but I'd like to know before I
If
make
we
a
can
vote
figure
on
that out today, what happened, I would be more than happy to have this thing go forward. Mark, would you entertain being on that group?
Yes, sir.
Is there anybody else that would entertain being on that group? I'd like to be there as well, since I've been there.
Definitely not me.
Okay, so it'll be Alderman Mosteller, Alderman Spencer, and myself. We'll give you a holler and just hopefully by the end of the day. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Larry. All right. The next thing is the manager's report.
Yes, sir. Manager's report for October 7th, 2024. PTC number 8, recovery update. I refer you to the handout so you can follow along. Okay, so I appreciate Mr. Koloff's presentation, but I want to clarify exactly what happened. We did submit a total FEMA reimbursement request for $2.8 million. 2.6 of this was for stormwater repair and rehabilitation of the system. Now, this coincides with our renewed emphasis on our stormwater system, including the MAP. However, FEMA at this stage only allowed $1 million, pending further inspection. Now, there was you may not have seen it was small writing, but the part of the stormwater, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Zelenik, what they're allowing in that $1 million is an inspection of the system for $90,000. Possibly, once they determine the damage to the system, that could then trigger more money than that $1 million, and we did submit up to $2.6 million for the stormwater. Is that a fair statement? Okay. So I want to say that I appreciate Mr. Koloff, and he's done a fantastic job stepping up to that, along with Mr. Flint and Tom Z and the staff. But there is a possibility there will be more stormwater funds. The money in the $1 million is just $90,000 to inspect the system. Okay. All right. Traffic delays. Okay, it's a little bit of a Groundhog Day there for Chief Coring. That this is a serious matter. It affects our businesses. The critical choke point, if we analyze this, what's happening in this, is the choke point at the Highway 133 and 87 intersection. As these are state roads, we don't have control of the traffic modeling to control that backup. NCDOT is using their traffic solution at the intersection, and they have agreed to be here Thursday to discuss the backup solution and the status of the Route 211 bridges. We all know that the permanent solution will be the restoration of the bridges, and we have expressed this very strongly to DOT, given all that they have on their plate, being respectful of that with Western North Carolina. But we are moving as fast as we can to the 211 bridges. I saw WECT did a wonderful video of a drone showing the work, and it is moving fairly quickly. The Duke Canal Bridge remains scheduled for opening in 11 days. Dutchman's Creek is 10/31. Coordination is occurring with the local employers on shift changes. I've spoken to the town manager of Bald Head Island as to his staffing, as to it affects the ferry, and he's agreed to make some adjustments. So we made calls to Dosher, and Chief Corin has made calls to area businesses to inquire about the shifts all feeding into that critical junction at 133 Route 87. So we are pursuing actively the solutions, both the immediate and the long term. I want to say to Chief Corin and his department, you've really stepped up, done excellent traffic management guidance. Very impressive. Thank you. Downtown businesses. I know the Mayor Pro Tem, as have many of you, have spoken to these businesses and are concerned about the impact on the businesses. I walked around on Friday as well, spoke to 3. And we know that this is impacting you. We're very much aware of the urgency, and we're pursuing these solutions that I just mentioned. To assist, we're continuing on with the business of government. Scheduled events continued, the Kingfisher Tournament. I think that went quite well. The Captain Charlie Fishing Tournament for children was held. That continues to bring folks downtown. I came downtown with my daughter and witnessed a good-sized crowd. With the individual assistance SBA loans, federal assistance will be available soon. We are using social media to continue the message that we are open for business, we are not damaged, and actually more accessible in the morning and evening hours with more parking available. I want to remind everyone at the last meeting, city government spends $1 million annually, at least in the last fiscal year, into the local economy with direct purchase orders, as well as our staff dining and shopping downtown. So we are an economic anchor that will help bolster the slight downturn now. But the plan is to move forward, work this solution at 133 and 87, get these bridges back up, and keep putting the word out that we are open for business. As I mentioned, staff will conduct an after-action assessment of all these issues you've raised: stormwater system, planning and building improvements that we could pursue, which will require some legal input at the next meeting. Road improvements, we will do a full after-action assessment and get some costs together to put in the legislative packet. Comprehensive plan update. The business of government must continue on. We have a meeting tomorrow, scheduled 5:30 to 7:30 here with the Stewart consultants on the draft comprehensive plan, vision, goals, and recommendations. Now, these things that come up from this storm, can they not feed into the comprehensive plan when we talk about stormwater, UDO improvements, planning, building improvements? Okay, so it's good timing. The old courthouse renovation. Business of government must continue. We are moving the environmental abatement. Work begins today. Mr. Zelenik, you've done an excellent job coordinating that. To be completed in December. The structural analysis of the building indicates that it is structurally sound. However, improvements may be needed based on the future use of the building. So that's moving apace. Police department and city hall office relocation. With the police department now relocated, administrative staff are now on the second floor, so we can allow the first floor to be more customer focused with planning, code enforcement, and inspections. I took a tour of the police building, and it seems to be comfortable for you guys. It's a nice, comfortable workspace for you, productive. Spoken to some of your staff that say there's more walk-in traffic as well from the public there. Not sure why, but you're getting more Maybe they're shopping at Walmart. Is it the Walmart? The Walmart effect. But yeah, and there's a hair cuttery next door. So get your police service and hair done as well. All right. Finally, Public Works Department and Stormwater. Okay, so Mr. Stanley and I are out on the street. He's done an excellent job to do what he can with the existing system. They installed a new 12-inch storm pipe at 309 Herring Drive, 2 new catch basins at the intersection of East 8th Street and Memory Lane, and lowered an existing catch basin box. As Mr. Zelenik mentioned, they are now able to do more in the stormwater, so we are on it, and I want to thank his crews. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Can I ask a couple of questions? Okay, this one really is for Mo. The comprehensive plan meeting tomorrow night, what's the format of that?
Thank you for asking. This is going to be an open house style format, so citizens can come and go between 5:30 and 7:30. There will be posters and handouts to give that have the information. There will be a presentation at 6 p.m. where the consultants will be going through the goals and objectives that are being presented. It'll be short so that people can come in and out.
So the last one of these I went to, I was wholly unimpressed. Okay? So this is tomorrow. Is there any paperwork from them that we're all going to see before this, like where they are, what they're doing? Or are we going to walk around and look at placards on things that tell me what the demographics of the town are? I mean, this is going on for a long time, and I don't have a warm and fuzzy about this. So I was expecting before we had this meeting that we would all get like a status report in writing as to where they are. And I don't see anything that brings us into the fold here. I've got to walk around with no guidance, look at placards, and I'm supposed to be feeling happy about this. This is a critical aspect of where we're going to go to. Do we have anything in writing from them to give to us?
I have a
And I'm not blaming you. Certainly, I'm not blaming you.
I don't take that personally at all. Staff has been working with them. I have a meeting with them every other week to go through through the goals. We look at the vision. The stakeholders have been meeting regularly. The steering committee, rather, has been meeting, looking at the future land use map, looking at some of these recommendations, the vision itself. So that's your steering committee is the one taking a look at things as it progresses. This presentation will outline the vision, and it's the starting point where we can start looking at what has been put together. And I can surely get you a packet together for you, no problem. But this is just rolling it out to everyone at once so that it's given in the same format to everyone at once.
A steering committee gives a recommendation, correct?
Yes.
So if we're rolling out what the vision is, would somebody walk away from that saying that's the vision? This board is the one who decides what the vision is and not the steering committee. They make recommendations to us. So I'm trying to figure out who's driving this train here, and I don't see that we're much involved in it.
If you come and if there are very different opinions about what the vision should be, I think comments are going to be taken. And if anything needs to be updated, absolutely, that will be taken forward and make changes as necessary. So, however you would like me to proceed, I can get some information.
Since we're on a very short timeline now, I will leave it to your discretion. Do you just want to have an off-site conversation with me? You want to send it to some paperwork? You got other things on your agenda as well today, and I don't want to take your time if you're dealing with developers and stuff and put them to the side. But somehow I would like to get some, between now and when we go in there, have read something about where we're going. How you would like to be able to proceed with that, I'm going to defer to you completely. It doesn't have to be an epistle. It could be just a page, 2 pages, whatever it is, just to tell us where we are, what we're doing up to this point.
I have one quick question on this as a follow-up to the mayor's comments. Will we get clarity tomorrow on what the next steps after tomorrow night are?
Yes, there definitely will be. This public forum is to look at it's the goals, the big picture, so that they can then take all of the background information, all of the public input from the surveys and other meetings that have taken place, put that together into implementation strategies that would be put together for the draft plan that would then be presented for review by the Board of Aldermen.
This meeting, just so I'm clear, this meeting is another meeting in process. That's what this is. This is them gathering more information from the public potentially and that sort of thing. It's not the Board of Aldermen. We're going as citizens. We're not reigning in as aldermen.
Right. It's going to be, yes, so people can see what the big picture vision, the goals, and how to move forward, and if they have any information they want to add to or ask why this is there, so that they know where this, and a lot of this comes from the survey and the public input that was gathered throughout the process in the last 9 months.
Any other comments or thoughts?
I have one, and I'm just passing along a citizen's rather amusing suggestion. Chief Coring already knows this. Because of our new location and the big sign that's right next to our location in that new building, or new to us, we're next door to Great Clips. So the citizen has suggested that our signs say, Great Cops.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to, I'm sorry, board comments. I apologize. Alderman Mosteller?
No, thank you, sir.
Alderman Carroll?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I just wanted to remind everyone that tomorrow night, October 8th, 5 to 6 is the dinner with a firefighter. So they're serving Firehouse chili. You get to meet your neighborhood fire folks, and it's always a good time being there. So if you get a chance and you can, don't have plans tomorrow night, show up at the firehouse. Also, one other thing, I apologize. So if we could just get an update on the deck replacement repair here at the community building, maybe.
We didn't put that on our budget. It's not in our budget.
Okay.
I have nothing to do with the deck project. I'm Cheyenne, not Elena.
I know that.
Oh, okay.
Y'all, yeah, okay. Thank you.
I do believe that was not included in the budget. I think that was the word I was told. Is that right, Mr. Zelenik? Okay.
Are we making repairs to it, or it just doesn't need to be done?
Tom?
Not that I'm Public Works, but I do see Tom Stanley every day. I'm not Cheyenne either, or Elena. Tom Zelnick, city engineer. They're doing repairs as needed. There is no replacement of it that was not in the budget, so that project is not there.
Thank you, sir. Alderman Davis?
Nothing from me.
Mayor Pro Tem?
This is our first meeting after number 8 came through. I had the distinct pleasure of being in the EOC and seeing our city staff manage what was happening in the city in real time. I can't tell you how impressed I was by the team stepping up, how they communicated with each other, the just overall team atmosphere to try and get everyone through what was a very unexpected day to start with, where I think most of us were going about our lives as we thought we were getting a little bit of rain that day. Since then, I've been able to participate in meetings with the county, the EOC from the county, the state level officials have been here, the federal level officials have been here. We had a visit from Governor Cooper for those that didn't see that. And the staff and this board have been working tirelessly to mitigate the effects of our roads being closed on not only our citizens but also the businesses in town. I have been on the phone and text messaging almost daily with our chief of police, updating him on traffic as I am traveling in and out of the city with 2 young children in school outside of our city limits. I am back and forth multiple times a day and seeing things happening in real time. I do not recommend this and don't do it, but I got frustrated one day and I actually parked my car and got out and started directing traffic. Because I felt that we could do better, and with communication with our DOT contacts and our chief of police, we have now mitigated some of that. In particular, today was the first day that Southport Elementary went back into school in person. So just as a reminder to everyone, they are letting out at 1 o'clock today. So we are going to see some additional effects from that traffic, and we will see what that looks like as it goes forward today. But I thank our police chief and the entire police team for stepping up. I'm thankful for Monroe sending their backup for us to get things handled as well as we could. And I just want to thank the citizens for their patience with us. And everybody, please go support our local businesses. If traffic tends to clear by around 7 o'clock in the evening, so go out, enjoy shopping, enjoy eating, and then you can go leave town after 7-ish or so. But I think I'm really proud of everybody coming together and what we saw after 8.
Alderman Spencer.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So many issues. I agree. Our police agency did a great job handling something that wasn't our direct problem, but we were the first on the scene to handle it and take the beating. And we're the ones that people know, so we're the ones that people are comfortable saying, we need help, we need this, we need that. So I appreciate all the hard work of the traffic, but we're realizing the importance. I'm worried about the development, but it's the evacuation. It's when the things get bad, how are we going to take care of people? The trees and all, they take care of themselves, animals sometimes, but that's the exit routes, the safety. What are we going to look like in 10 years when something worse comes, and there is worse. The mountains have seen that. So God bless Western North Carolina as well. Please spend your money locally. I would love to see a trend where we are self-sustaining in Southport, and we do not depend on the outside for the money, because the more you depend on the outside for money, the more you're susceptible to the will of the world. And that's so. We need to be self-sustainable. We need bridges to replace culverts on Bonnets Creek. I borrowed it from a nursery rhyme. The BRIDGE is the thing for me. I don't know if you will recognize that, Charles. We need bridges so that the water will flow out. It needs to flow naturally. We have damaged the natural flow of water in Southport. I want to congratulate the city manager. You're the first city manager I've seen to get a fence put up around the courthouse, and that is a great accomplishment. I really appreciate moving forward rather than saying, what should we do, rather than do things. So thank you so much. Spend your money locally, support the local businesses, show them that you can keep them alive and that they don't need the outside.
Alderman Lay.
I'd like to do the same thing that Alderman Kelly and Alderman Spencer said. This recent unpleasantness we've gone through, I think that the city staff, the emergency responders have all jumped up. They shows the quality of the people that we're dealing with here. They put in countless hours. As everyone has said, our businesses downtown are suffering. I got a reservation at a restaurant that would take me forever to get a reservation, and I walked right in.
That's right.
Made my wife think I'd done something right for a change. But we've got a lot of challenges ahead of us. I think that we are Southport. We're going to step up and we're going to get it done. Now, we've got some problems over in the western part of the state that might take some attention away from us, but we still have some problems in Southport that have to be addressed. We are the front porch of Brunswick County. Everybody comes here. You don't see anybody making a pilgrimage to Ash or somewhere else. It's us. We're here. And we've got to do the things necessary to get us up to speed.
I'm going to just close this out by saying Chief Coring did a wonderful job in the EOC, taking command, being the incident commander. He certainly was the lead and the pusher for the traffic control. The hurdles that he was given sometimes are insurmountable, but they're not because of any lack from the chief. The other part of this that we've almost forgotten about, that I'm waiting for the document, is the action after action report of the day of the event. I had the good fortune of sitting down in the eating area at the fire station where the firemen were eating, and listening, just being quiet, just listening to them tell their stories back and forth about this save and that save and this thing and that. There was some spectacular work done that day. Pulling people out of cars, people driving into ditches. 12 hours later, ditches not in Southport, ditches not being protected, and people cascading off at them at 55 miles an hour, and the Southport police and fire have to go and rescue people. So I'm really looking forward to this after action report, because we really need to highlight in writing the storyline and keep that storyline in our historical records of how the city pulls together. It was humbling to listen, just to sit there and listen to those young men and women talking about all the different things. If the police officers were in there at the same time eating and telling the story. So all great work. And we have things we have to fix now, just like in any other after action report. But we have a tremendous foundation to build on. Go ahead, sir.
I did neglect in my manager's report to thank Fire Chief Drew, because the most critical statistic of this whole event, no deaths, no injuries. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay, at this point in time, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session under section 143-318.11 to discuss a property deal, and the second part is a very quick personnel update issue as well. Do I have I will entertain that motion.
So moved, as long as I don't have to read it.
Second. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Whoa,
Oh,
whoa. In keeping with our disclosure, can we ask the name, address, and purpose?
You certainly can ask that question. I don't have it, though. Alderman Davis, do you have the information?
The address is East Howe Street. I'm looking for, I don't.
Wait, it's
no,
what?
I'm sorry,
what-
East Moore Street.
Right.
I believe the owner is Ginger Harper, and the purpose would be to improve and enlarge our parks and recreation holdings.
Okay. With that said, does that suffice for you, sir?
I just want to make sure that if we're going to do it, that we are consistent.
I have no problem with it. I just want to make sure the answer
Yes, sir.
suffices. With that said, all in favor of going to closed session, please say aye. Any opposed? We're in closed session. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to come out of closed session.
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. Any conversation? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're back in open session. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. Any conversation? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. We're closed.